Well, she knew not to kiss and tell, but when other people were getting the story all wrong, her story, well, she said, I'm going to tell it myself. Yeah.
That's right. Holly Madison is ready to share her curious adventures and cautionary tales of being a former Playboy bunny in her brand new book, Down the Rabbit Hole. Welcome back, Holly.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You were our very first guest when we launched the show, so
Yeah,
we appreciate you
yeah.
coming back. We're so appreciative.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
How long did it take you to write?
About a year. I started coming up with the idea to write it, and we were pitching it about 2 years ago, but I would say a year solid of writing it.
Okay, so this book, there's some pretty salacious things in this book, and you're doing a lot of self-revelation.
Yeah.
What was that like as you were writing it, like kind of reliving this time in your life?
Parts of it were hard. There were parts I kept skipping over and saying, I'm going to go back to that chapter and do it later. And I kept saying that over and over. But eventually, I had to make the commitment to tell the truth and really get into it. And, I worked with some great people, had an amazing editor, and she really left no stone unturned and, asked me every question in the book. And I really had to dig deep and really get to why I was making the decisions I made and why I stayed for so long.
Right. There was 5 seasons on that show, and when you were there with Hugh Hefner, I mean, obviously at some point you thought, okay, it's time to move on, to have kids, to get married, and now you've done all of those things. Looking back, I've heard you say before, there's no regrets there.
Yeah.
There's no regrets. But what do you look back and tell yourself, and then moving forward, what would you tell your daughter?
Oh my gosh, I would just hope my daughter read my whole story and could discuss it with me and not make the same mistakes I did. I mean, I think for me, I love where my life is now, and you got to take the good with the bad, and you learn from the bad, and so I don't really have any regrets, but I would want other women to not be as blinded by fame as I was. Fame isn't everything, and to really have faith in themselves.
Give us some of the highlights in the book. I mean, what were you, let's say, like the 5 things that take away that if somebody hasn't read the book, that they should look forward to.
I mean, honestly, there's so much. I feel like when I was writing it, every chapter is like a different chunk of dirt. But what I really want people to take away is I wanted, particularly women to read it, and if they were in a bad relationship or if they felt, branded by a decision they made when they were young, or, want to make over their lives and start over, I wanted to inspire people to feel like they could do that and not have to sit around and worry about everybody else judging or saying what you should be or who you should be.
I think a lot of people will be shocked about your book. I started to read it already, and you talk about committing suicide, if the thoughts ran through your head and you think, oh, it's the Playboy mansion, it's glitz and glamour. So I think a lot of people will be shocked when they pick up the book to see it's not all that way.
Yeah, when I first moved in, I was excited, to be a girlfriend. I thought it looked like a very fun, kind of wild thing to do when I was in my 20s, and I just got in way over my head. It was a way more serious situation than I ever could have known. Everybody likes to say, you knew what you were getting into, but really you don't. There's no way you know every little rule and how you're going to feel when you're there.
Were there chaperones behind the gates? Or no, the girls were all on their own?
Well, we had a curfew. We were supposed to be in by 9 p.m. We weren't really allowed to travel or, be on our own other than during the day. And I remember the first night I ever spent away from the mansion. After 7 years of being completely faithful, I found out later he had me followed.
Wow.
And in the audio tour, which I love so much, because Holly here is actually reading to the reader, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's captivating. It's like you're sitting in her little circle, and it's story time. You talk about the days, and you talk about Monday through Sunday, essentially, what you guys were assigned to do, and how was it Thursdays? That was your day off?
Yeah, Thursdays, there wasn't really any events scheduled at the mansion that we were expected to be at, but it definitely wasn't a day off. You were still expected to be back in by 9 p.m.
Wow, so this is like a modern day harem. That's what I thought when I was like kind of going through it, and one guy kind of running it. What does it say about our society now that something like that was basically accepted
and televised?
Yeah, and televised,
and really sugar-coated. That's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book. Is of course there was a lot of fun and glamour that went along with it, but there was also a very real dark side as well. And I wanted to share that because so many girls, grew up watching that show, and they wouldn't even know maybe what Playboy was if it wasn't for that show. So I think it's important to share the whole story and not just the sugar-coated side.
Right. And Hugh Hefner, Kendra, they've come out, they've said some negative things maybe about your response to all of this. Are you shocked? Are you surprised? Are you kind of like, you know what, this is why I'm doing it?
Oh, it's why I'm doing it. I distanced myself from those people a long time ago, and when I was writing the book, I was really committed to telling the truth and telling, you know, my full experience. And I didn't care, you know, what the response was going to be. I wasn't looking for a reaction or looking to get revenge or anything like that.
Or rewrite history.
Yeah, rewrite history. It's just, you know, I knew you wouldn't like it, and I know that Kendra's still part of the Playboy machine and that she would get her hackles up too, but I don't really care. You know, I think it's important to share the truth of my story and finally have a chance to say what I was going through.
And a lot of people today can have a chance to get to meet you up close and personal at your book signing.
Yeah, 7 o'clock at the Barnes & Noble on Rainbow. I'll be there.
Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. This is going to be good times. Holly's book signing starts at 7 tonight, again at the Barnes & Noble, located in the Best of the West Shopping Center. The address is on your screen right there. Remember, you must have a book and a wristband. That is key to be in line. Wristbands are being given out now at the Barnes & Noble location. Go nowhere. We'll be right back, and thank you so much again, Holly, for joining us.
Thanks, Holly.